light of everything that has occurred and the last meeting, the Secretary-Treasurer has openly stated that he wanted to have an external audit at the quarterly meeting on April 5th. And at our last meeting on Monday, the 6th, he stated that it would probably be, what, $250,000, did you say, Mick, for an external audit? Okay, so what I have done is I've been doing some thinking about it and talked with other band members about this. And we feel that we could work with you on you approving and voting on implementing and developing a finance committee comprised of qualified internal auditors, other accounting employees, and other independent band members who have a background in accounting, who can serve on this finance committee to oversee all of the chart of accounts and to be able to accomplish the mission of what we're here for. And that is to determine where the misspending is taking place, and a chart of accounts be given to this committee so they can go over each one, and they can identify the scope and an outline and a time frame of when they can accomplish these goals and objectives. And I listed a few of them, but it's not limited. But what I really feel is the credit card expenditures have to be reviewed, travel, and how travel is correlates with credit card spending during the council members' travel or employees' travel. Tribal council members' line items, and the overspending and where and why, and the program budget spending. And one of the other importance is outside contracts with other contractors and vendors. And that includes not only tribal council side, government side, but gaming side. You are the commission, the gaming commission as well. And you asked me last week to define what areas that I wanted policies and procedures in place. That's not my job. That is your job. And what policies, procedures. All government, such as a complex government that you oversee, to safeguard the band funds. That is your job, to put policies and procedures all over, every single area and budget. And the priority task of the Finance Committee would be to assist and write financial policies and procedures, and then to go back to the band audit that Eli informed of us last Monday on what areas the band audit showed that were lax. And obviously your accounting system, it really needs reform, and it needs great improvement.
Madam Chair, can I make one correction? What I shared with you, Liz, last week was the budget ordinance. I said when I was on the council, we put together a budget ordinance in place, we enacted it, and the purpose of that, well, I don't need to I think it's self-explanatory, but it was to establish lines of authority and dollar limits.
Okay,
When we
okay.
put that in place, our intent was to manage and monitor the band spending.
Okay, thank you for clarifying that, Eli, so I don't want to make you responsible when you were chair, okay? Okay, but there was a band audit, and I'm not privy to that, but that band audit did show lax areas in your procedures of your financial accounting. So that would be a priority task as well by this finance committee. And so if we have internal auditors that are qualified, not political appointees, that they would have the expertise to oversee this finance committee and to accomplish the goals and objectives and the mission. And you've got to remember, this is to protect yourself, because when you were elected, it was your responsibility, and it is your responsibility and your job duties to safeguard the band funds. Okay, as far as the credit card spending, there's,
Can
it's
I
really,
ask a question here?
sure.
I don't know if it's just me or I'm getting lost in this thing. What exactly are we here for today? What, Ms. Chair,
She was looking at
are we
things to
covering
look
this whole
at.
thing? Because the last meeting I was at, we're talking about policies and procedures. We're not talking about what we're gonna do as far as this audit is.
This is part of it, this is part of it. The finance committee would develop
But we weren't talking about a committee. We
the
were talking about.
no, that's what I'm recommending. That was what was not said. This is my recommendations on behalf of the band members, Mick, to have a finance committee to write these policies and procedures in collaboration with this tribal council.
Okay, one more thing. Steve, was there some policies already in place? I mean, it may be in place, they were there, but we never approved them.
There are policies and procedures
And
in
not
place
from
for
this current
almost,
council, this is from the past.
right.
2005,
Yeah.
I've got them.
Okay, maybe we should be looking at these before we make any decisions about forming a committee to rewrite them. We should all go back.
Exactly. Even though they have not been approved, each audit that comes up, these are handed out and given to the auditors. And the auditors say, oh, you got policies in place. No, you don't. None of these have ever been approved by council.
Are you objecting
The
to
fact
having
that you
a...
No,
have
I'm trying to
them
get
means
this
that
thing
they
straight.
exist.
I
So
don't have a
Huh?
problem with
the
that.
fact that you have them in front of you says that they exist.
Yes,
But-
but they've never been approved.
Okay, but you can't say that they don't exist because you have them in your hands.
Well, you understand what I
Well,
mean?
obviously,
Yeah.
they're not
Doesn't-
approved. That's the
They're
bottom
not
line.
applicable,
Yep.
is what I'm saying. They're not applicable.
Only when
They
you're in a
haven't been
pinch,
approved.
they're applicable. Only in a pinch when you're... So that's why this finance committee could then review these existing policies and procedures, and you guys can tweak them and then adopt
I
them.
know, I was looking at this finance committee, because you know what, we talked about the separation, we talked about individuals, you guys talked about political employees, or appointments or whatever. So who's gonna determine who's gonna sit on this committee or not? Because if we pass a resolution saying we want our controller on there, we want our internal auditor on there, we want these, is it gonna come back and people are say, well, those are political appointments? It's like, who's gonna determine who sits on these so it's fair that it doesn't come back again?
Okay, then we would be the gatekeeper. We
So,
would be the watchdog, us community members, tribal members.
well, that's, I mean, so that's as determined, how are we gonna compile this so that everybody thinks that it's fair and reasonable and that the council's not trying to dictate who sits on that committee?
Okay, well then if you have a problem with that, I'd like to hear from the rest of the council members, then why not have some external auditors then?
Yep,
I was just recommending that to save money.
No, I'm fine with it, but I'm just saying to make sure that
Yeah, I
you're
understand.
not.
Madam Chairman, I think I can clean up a lot of that. The last fraud audit performed on Leech Lake Reservation was the year 2000, John Romero. John Romero's final recommendations were that the financial department was totally mismanaged and there was a total distrust among staff members. And he recommended that we put together, at that time, a audit finance committee. And we actually put it together. Remember that? And we had it in Eli's administration. But in about a month to a month and a half, it just kind of fell apart because no one really knew what their roles were in this. But since that time, we've gone over them. And I had to go find an old floppy disk to get back to these. I have a box of my own private material when I left Gates that was left over there. And I've tried to get that box for the last year and a half. And it is materials for my classes that I teach and a lot of the materials that we wrote in terms of these items. And I'd like to get that box back if I could.
No, I'm not opposed to it, but just like Carrie just said, you know, there's gonna be employees on there, there's gonna be employees who people perceive are in certain arenas, and there, you know, there's gonna be complaints about it anyways.
The Audit Finance Committee membership is just okay.
So, I'm not comfortable with just some community members being gatekeepers. I mean, there's no process to that. Who the hell is the community members?
I
We
agree
have
with
9,200 employees,
I agree
or
with you.
9,200 band members. So,
That's why we didn't put them in here.
right, so I'm just being clear here, that when we say we're speaking for people, we should define who we're speaking for.
Yeah.
That's just what I want to say.
The committee membership was made up of the executive director and included the comptroller, assistant controller, budget manager, internal auditor, compliance officer, self-governance coordinator, and a gaming compliance officer. Any division members who were appointed or program staff were advisory status only. Then there is a list of things that, functions and responsibilities that they would have, and they run a long ways. Financial policies and procedures, internal financial controls, gaming revenue allocation plan, review of the administration of the organization's conflict of interest policy, review of the performance of management and operating personnel under the organizational code of ethics, implementation of follow the implementation of the annual budget process, pre-audit meetings before the audit takes place, and review the internal audit plan and scope for the year and the internal auditors, review and discuss the external auditors and the scope and plan for them, work with the A133 circular management, and now I think A37, right? Both?
Yep, that's
They're both in
13 years old, so.
I know it. It's A37 now, right? But what I'm saying is that the model is here. That should certainly can
That
be.
was adopted in 2000, I've never seen that, I've worked in the accounting office for a long time.
I know,
wonder why.
it lasted only about
Could
a
you,
month.
could we get copies?
It lasted
of
only
that
about,
as
yes,
well?
but it says also there it replaces the budget team. It was Eli's administration that's who developed the budget process in the first place. And seeing a way to monitor that budget process was the final creation of an audit. And this is pretty much what exists over there now. This is the original draft that we did back in 2005. These are the policies and procedures for accounting. They do exist over there, never been approved. It would go a long ways toward improving things by approving the financial policies and procedures, but go over them, because I know they've been modified as times have changed the last 7 years. I know they've been modified. I also know they've been handed out for the audits. Whenever any federal individual asks, they get handed out, but they're not approved. I said there are a lot of materials that I have that's in that box that's private. It has nothing to do with gaming, nothing at all. It's my class materials and some of these materials that I have to go dig up. And if I could get that box back, I could find more.
Who did this audit in 2000?
John Romero.
Does anybody have a copy of that?
That was done by, Bradley and Associates, the current auditors.
Yeah, and he was under the,
Don Romero.
Don Romero, not John, Don.
Right, I think we have copies of that. Lying around somewhere. Certainly find those.
Yeah,
If we don't have them here, then, like I said, our current auditors are Bradley, I'm sure they can
Yeah.
provide copies too.
but since 2000, there have been things started and stopped and started and stopped and started and stopped. You still don't have the policies approved.
Obviously, you have an individual here in Bruce Baird who knows the history and has been involved. And when I use the word gatekeeper, he is qualified and has that expertise, and I would like to see him involved and work with you as a consultant to assist you with these policies and procedures.
You want a contract?
No contract?
Then I'd be investigating myself.
Conflict of interest, huh? So whenever you're ready, I'd like to continue on, or if you want to stay discussing that, just let me know.
Madam Chair, can I usually try to keep quiet. You know, when I came into office in 1996, I came in at a time when the CPA firm came in from an audit from our gaming operations, and I forget what our total gross was. It was like 62 million or so. Our net profit ending June 30th, the gaming operation was $1.4 million. Now, anybody that knows basic business knows that if you got $60 million coming in and you have a net profit of 1.4, you know, there's something is not right, you know. So, I mean, I support financial integrity for the band. I said, because we have so many unmet needs here at Leech Lake. You know, we need to spend our money wisely. So, what I was going to suggest was, you know, we brought structure in 1996, you know, and when I left office, our net revenue then had increased to like 12 or 14 million, I forgot. But I can't say enough that how much personally I appreciate financial integrity, and I think if you put together, you know, some type of a framework where you had people looking at how we spend our money. I also have copies of some other documents that I'll share with the council. I'll go into my boxes at home and I'll pull them out. But you know, one of the issues that we hear a lot about is the credit cards. You know, we had an American Express card agreement that council members signed. It was defined, you know, what purposes we could use it for. And I was really proud of the budget ordinance too, because you know, it put structure in place in the gaming operations. When I came on board, it seemed like we were spending on a whim, you know. And you know, any businessman, if you want to succeed, you know, you need to plan your spending, you know, put your budget and then report from that point. But anyway, that's I had to get up and share that because I just can't emphasize the importance of the issue, I guess.
One of the ways we operated under that card was all travel was done under the Secretary Treasurer's card. Individuals couldn't use their cards for travel, only travel could be done under, because then we would have a single source of review. And each month we handed out all the credit card statements to all council members present, and we went over them. And in fact, former executive director, I can't remember his name again, Ross, flew his wife to Las Vegas one time on her anniversary. He was terminated. One violation of the credit card policy, and he was terminated. It didn't make a difference what that violation was going to be. Not that he flew his wife, just that he violated the policy. And he was terminated immediately. We don't seem to have that tightness or strictness within the system now. That's why we want to look at the credit cards first. I realize this will take a little bit to absorb, but we are still willing to work with you. We're still willing to share what we have, or what I have at least. And if I get my box back from gaming, I can share more.
Share our boxes?
No, it's
Sounds
a
like
box.
there's a few out there.
No, it's a box that's been in gaming since I left. It's my personal stuff that Mr. Papsador and I packed together out of my desk and out of my personal files for my class that I was teaching. And we forgot the box. It was on a Saturday afternoon. Once I shut the door, it was locked. But it's been there ever since. And I've tried to get materials out of it, I've tried to get the box. Have been denied every time.
Many of the legal questions or issues we have to answer with the committee or anything, but confidentiality, anything like that.
Well, I don't think there's confidentiality issues here with what we're talking about, because it's all public information and it's all, I mean, it's about, you know, good governance and transparency. So I think this is a very good discussion, and I think it should, you know, I'd like to see it continue. I'd like to see us get, you know, to a point where we have good policies and procedures in place. I think I've complained, well, not complained, but I've talked with the council members a number of times about what I view as areas where we don't have sufficient coverage in our policies. So I mean, I'm very happy to see this discussion start, and I think the financial area is a good place to start, but there are other areas too that we can look at once we get to financial. So, you know, as far as confidentiality, there is definitely, you know, certain information that's confidential that's covered by data privacy laws, but I think generally what we're talking about here with the band's financials, that's public information for our band members.
I would be willing to serve on a committee that would begin to establish how we can use these, or not use them, or something else.
Well, I think, like when that was done in 2000, I don't know why the committee didn't continue going or whatever happened.
They really didn't understand their roles or what they were doing.
And then over time, it kind of just kept progressing
Yep.
through administration, it just kept getting
Exactly.
more and more lax. But I think if we look at what the document that you have there, to see what the findings were done, those are some of the resolutions to them findings of things that we can put in place to start eliminating. I think between that document, the budget ordinance, look at individuals in each of those areas, because I think finance, it is a big area. And I think focusing with gaming and government and housing too, I think we're gonna have to have individuals that are diverse in those areas to kind of make sure we put up those safeguards and to start establishing that and then get something going. And I know it's not gonna happen overnight, but I think the conversation with it going forward, looking at individuals in them areas and maybe even using between the budget ordinance and that document, individuals that could serve on it. I'm sure the executive director's on both, the controller's on both of them. So there's gonna be a lot of areas where it's gonna be exactly similar, but we could look at adding other individuals on there. I don't, like for instance, the deputy director, legal director, or somebody on there.
Well, what needs to be modified should be modified, you know, and brought up to date.
Yeah. Can we get copies?
Yeah.
That one, Bruce?
Yeah.
Okay, so you wanna make a copy?
This, we even went so far with this one that we had a blank resolution number. We were gonna make it a resolution and put it into place. But we did an ad hoc committee and they just kind of fell apart because the people couldn't understand their roles or what they were gonna do or why they were gonna do it.
Ava?
Thank you. I don't want the RTC, the RBC to misconstrue what some band members are trying to do. I think to be highlighted and not be defensive, but be in support of, you'll do a lot more out here in the community to gather our support. Right now, there's so many people out here that are saying, oh my God, she's doing this, he's doing that, oh, she's no good, he's no good. You know, we can't afford to be turning on each other. We elected you people to serve us, to give us ideas, what y'all are doing. Failure to do so, you're gonna have a disconnect. Because there's too many people, not only here, but in the Twin Cities area, Duluth, out state, are questioning what are we supposed to do as reservation members. I want to clarify one thing. Over the past month or two, I've met several times with Mick, several times with Leroy, several times over the years with Steve White, who is my district rep. In doing so, I wanted to give my input on several issues, which I've done. There is, excuse my allergies, by me trying best to figure out how to work and to add my input has not gone astride. It's been listened to. I don't have a magic potion. Yes, I'm an elder. Yes, in a couple years I'm going to be 70. That doesn't mean I have all this knowledge. It merely means that I've been taught by my aunties, my uncles, my brothers, my sisters, that Leech Lake is my home area. I do not regret moving up here. I do not regret asking Mick or Steve for help. I want to clarify by saying we, as tribal members, not only have to work together, but we have to respect each other. We have to respect each other. Now, one of the things I've always had a problem with is people getting defensive. If there's positive outcomes, positive solutions, we should never be defensive. I don't know if anybody else wants to speak. I just want to make sure that the RBC members work with the community out here. Failure to do so, you'll have more disconnect. We cannot afford that. I'm going to be the first to take anybody on because what I believe in is not only integrity, honesty, character. Without that, I'll be nothing. Without that, we'll all be nothing. Thank you so much.
Thank you, David. I think with these steps moving forward with the the meeting from Monday, continuing with this one. I think the tribal council, I think all of us as a whole has agreed to work with the community members to get this thing forward, to see what things that we can put in place to help the betterment of it, to help with the transparency, to help with the better government and
That's right.
communication with the people. So, I think this coming forward will be a big step for the band as a whole in a lot of areas.
Yes.
I'd like to finish what I have on my, what I submitted to you. I know that it's really comprehensive. There's much information, financial records to access and review. However, we can start by small increments. And the first one that band members would like to see is the credit card spending. And as far as time frame goes, we can start by the fiscal year of July 1st, 2012, 2013. And then go backwards from there to look and review your spending of credit cards. And the question was asked to me by band members, why do the tribal council members have a credit card? It was always only the executive officers, secretary, treasurer, and the chairperson. Can someone answer that? Why everybody has a credit card? And why do you have a credit card as opposed to just expenses for travel? And submitting your, clearing out your travel when you return? Because there have been allegations by this council that you take travel and you get travel and then you pocket the money. Now I'm saying these are allegations. You pocket the money and then you turn around and use your credit card for your expenses. And so we would like to cross-index that and see that. And if you have nothing to hide, you will do this. You will do it. The other thing, I'm going to a next item, is that this council recently passed a credit card limit of $5,000. But there was no specific time frame of when that $5,000 would be spent, overspent, or spent by, was it a day, was it a week, was it a month, was it a year, was it quarterly? And there's no time frame, so that you can just spend $5,000 and then spend another $5,000 and on and on and on. And that is not, policies and procedures that prevent from financial wrongdoing. And this must be addressed, and we are demanding that it be addressed. It is your responsibility under the Minnesota Chippewa Tribe Constitution to share openly public information, like Mr. Finday said. He gave his legal opinion. Well, it's the Minnesota Chippewa Tribe Constitution opinion as well. You are not here to just make up your own rules. You have a constitution to follow, to safeguard the band's funds and assets. And we are going to make you accountable to that. The other one is, I would like to know, and we would like to see that $5,000 credit card limit. Terry, can you share that with us?
Well, I know in the past there was no limit at all. In the past administration, you could spend $20,000 a month on a credit card. There was no limit. So when we come in, we talked about it, putting a limit on it, and it was, I think it started off as $1,000 a month, and then it got increased on it. And
So if an individual or a council member spends $5,000 in one day or 1 week, I mean, is there a limit on it, a time limit?
It's
Then
a
it will be
month
shut
issue.
off.
Huh?
It will be shut off once you reach that $5,000 limit within the month period.
Within a month?
Yes.
And is that in writing?
It's in writing from the credit card company. But as far as the policy that we passed, it was not there.
See-
We just went by the credit card policy.
Okay, so what you need to do then is, I would recommend that you have something in place that gives you a time frame, so that this is not abused.
Is it 1,000, or is it 5,000 everybody's card a month? I mean, not one card, but it's 5,000
For all
For
of
each
us?
card, yeah.
Each card.
Oh, it's each card.
Yeah.
I thought it was all cards.
Well, I would even go as far as restrict or take away the credit cards except for the secretary treasurer and the chairwoman.
Can I keep mine though? No, I'm just kidding. I'll say that, you know, I'm guilty of not probably addressing some of that. I assumed it was 5,000 as everybody together, but, you know, kind of what Avis was just talking about is that we don't have it all figured out. So, you know, sometimes there's band members out in the community who aren't necessarily sitting at this table all the time, who have some good things to give back or can help support us and put more checks and balances and controls into place, things for us to do. You know, it's only gonna protect us. And so, you know, I think it's a good thing, and Carrie was alluding to the same thing, is that these meetings are happening. I think things are gonna progress. I think more things will come into place, as far as controls go, spending controls. I like the idea of, the finance committee, like Bruce was just talking about. I think it kind of mirrors what the budget team does, but that budget team, it's more of just kind of this discussion instead of, you know, really putting things into place to stop crazy spending, so.
So you don't think, you're saying it's not effective, the budget team?
It's not being used.
It's
We
not,
don't.
oh, it's not being used?
No, the budget team meets and they go through all of that, but I mean, as far as like the ordinance goes, the budget
Okay,
team
okay.
is put into place by the ordinance, and the ordinance isn't followed.
Okay,
The ordinance says we're supposed to be out in the communities, by April, presenting the budgets, the budgets for the next fiscal year. I think it's April. It's
The budget's supposed to be approved.
approved by
Yeah.
April, but there's supposed to be community meetings prior to approval, just presenting it to the communities.
well, obviously, this finance committee is greatly needed to address all of those areas that are non-existent or lax or abused. And I would strongly recommend that you put that in place. Bruce, and there are others in the community who have the history, have the experience, have accounting experience, have, you know, legal experience, what have you, who you could count on if you are afraid that you're gonna be accused of appointing political employees. And, I mean, there are ways where you can do this with integrity. And counting, and then you can't just count on, you know, you know, my assistant he or she will know which employees are best. You can't rely on their advice or expertise. It is people like Bruce Baird and others that can help you with that. We're here to help you. We're not here to get down on you and accuse you of this and or that, but if there is wrongdoing, I don't care if it's by any one of you sitting at this table that has done wrong financially, and past administrations, whether it's Archie LaRose, whoever has to be accountable for wrongdoing. And I'm all in support of that, and I know Bruce and other band members are as well. So we'd like to see a copy of that, if it's in writing, of the $5,000 credit card. Can you offer that?
Sure.
Okay, all right, we'd like to see that.
I have a quick question. So you were saying that each council member gets a card, 39.9 thousand per district or per council member. What is this $5,000 card? What is the purpose of that?
No, the 39,900 is, it's,
That's to help your constituents, right?
yeah, that's a budgeted account that the councilors use.
So what is
And
this?
when the credit card is closed out, that account is charged, so that it's not 39 and the credit card.
No, so what is the $5,000 credit card being used for? What is the purpose of that per council member? What is that for?
Once in a while, I would use mine to get airplane tickets. And then it looks like it's up in, maybe close to the limit, or one of the other council members' cards. It depends who's available at a time. And a lot of times, we take care of our constituents. I've got bus tickets for them. I've taken them to Teals, and I get accused of going shopping at Teals, so I put that. I mean, there's reasons that it's there, and I kind of agree with you. I think it's excessive. I don't think it should be that high. But again, times have changed, and airplane tickets, and it's necessary to go to Washington, they're like $800 a ticket. You can't sometimes get them on the right card because of the billing side.
So do you need a credit card, Mick, to purchase an airline ticket or rooms or anything like that?
Sometimes,
They don't do, cash?
No,
Or
sure they
checks?
do, but
Travel checks?
sometimes you use them, but I
Yeah.
use mine for record keeping.
Okay. What did you say?
They get cash nowhere, we don't want access
Well,
to no
if you get a
cash.
travel check, you could cash it.
Well, but a lot of places won't even let you in there for
Okay,
cash.
that's what I was
A
asking.
lot of
And
places
then
don't even let you take a check to a
lot of
hotel or whatever. You
The
gotta have-
hotels, you need a credit card for a deposit on a lot of them. And so there are things, and then like one thing we're trying to put in a place like our Duluth band members. There's no office, there's nothing there for them. We have a funeral down there, there's not the Palace Hotel, Northern Lights, so we have to get hotel rooms for family members down there for funerals that are going on. Sometimes it happens on a Friday night, they need things taken care of over the weekend, tribal referral shutdown. So they'll call one of the council members and say, can you get us a couple rooms down here because our loved one is in the hospital or they passed away. So then we assist them by doing that, but right now we're looking at getting a Duluth office, start off very small. The LIC is willing to volunteer their time to go in, just kind of help with the paperwork, to kind of assist some individuals. So some are to help constituents over the weekends or evenings that don't live on the reservation, they live off from it.
Well, with that, having said that, Carrie, I don't think it would be wise then to withdraw the credit cards for the other district reps, because they need it for the constituents for funerals and what you just described. I would not want to see band members deprived, of assistance when it comes to medical and funerals. And so there's got to be a way that you can define, what areas are priority with the credit card. Travel, airline tickets, hotels, that sort of thing. That can be all done and defined with this finance committee with the tasks at hand. Okay, the next item is, I also got word that this council was attempting to restrict access to the financial records. And I think this was in light of the exposure of the credit cards on the Leech Lake Forum. And so I'm asking you, was there a resolution to restrict access of financial records from the band membership?
A resolution never came to this council.
Okay, was there a discussion on it?
Anything
I think the discussion's been just the opposite.
Yeah.
about the transparency.
We're trying to make it easier
Okay.
for the constituents.
Okay, well, I asked this because I have to clarify, and I just have to ask you, straight up, because obviously that's in violation of the Minnesota Chippewa Tribe Constitution, so I kind of found that very hard to believe. But on the other hand, if there is if there's wrongdoing, you know, on the, behind the scenes, you know, I'm more apt to believe that if, when wrongdoing is done, that attempts are to cover up, so. So everybody heard you, everybody heard them, there is no record or resolution to restrict band memberships, access to financial records. Okay, so I just want to point out that we are making you accountable, and we hope that we can work together to alleviate and clear this up, and that there's financial transparency with all of the band members and employees. And the administration, you're the one that sets the policies and procedures, and it goes down from the top. So what you need is training or information for your employees that they must also be aware of this, what you're doing. Because there's mistrust. There's lack of integrity and mistrust. And the work, outcome of work by the employees would improve if you had this open communication with them. Not with, and not only with just band members, but with your employees as well. And so we would recommend that you do this, that you work with your employees, you inform them, and your directors, and the directors down to the line staff. Davis?
I just want to add on to what, and I hope you don't mind, Elizabeth. You know, I think what has to happen in the very, very near future is this. I think program audits are not only necessary, but very much needed. You need a program audit on several of your programs that are in disarray. And yes, they are in disarray.
I believe internal audit.
Internal audit has got a 2-year cycle to audit all the programs. It's
Okay.
when we make a recommendation to the audit report, we do all programs go through an audit.
Yeah. So how does the average citizen like me, what is the directive in terms of improving a department? Where does that come into play?
All the internal audit reports are public information, so if you wanted to review any of them, you can.
Well, I can't believe that. I stand before all of you saying, I don't think that's going on.
Yeah, the history says otherwise of wrongdoing.
Staff say otherwise. The dysfunction in programs is out here. Because several of us are getting calls. I'm not an activist by no means. I have no authority with anything. But by God, when you get 60 calls a week from your employees complaining, I don't know what to do. There's complaints in gaming, there's complaints, different divisions, and I'm saying, holy, you guys gotta go meet with your bosses. What can I do? I'm not gonna do anything. I just want you to know, you've got staff out here complaining, big time, big time. Most are Leech Lake enrolled members. Something's gotta start happening here. The more dysfunction out here, the more you're gonna catch hell. I'm not going to be coming to all these meetings and raising my voice and bitching about this, bitching about that, although I have a tendency to do that. Go ahead.
I just wanted to say, and what she's talking about is because Davis and I and a few others are known as the big mouths of the reservation. She's absolutely right. We're getting calls from employees, Kim, Davis, so-and-so, so-and-so. Please bring up what's going on in my department. I was like, oh my God, there's so many problems, so that's what she's referred to. You guys got a lot of employees complaining about their supervisors, their directors, so-and-so's going on another trip. I mean, it's, you guys got a big package to work with here.
I think we're slowly doing things. I don't want anybody under impression that just ever since all of us were here, the whole reservation went in chaos. It took years to progress to this. The
We know
mentality,
that,
the
Gary,
election,
yes.
where if we can like you, Avis, like I mentioned earlier too, if we can start working together, starting with these meetings, get things going, that it will take time for this to move forward with it.
And I just want to say, Carrie, you're absolutely right. These problems were there way before you guys ever got it.
Right.
I think the thing is that we have a council who's listening. That's what I wanted to say. So that's why, you know, oh, I can't come to the meeting. I don't want to say that. I'll get fired if I speak up. So you're absolutely right. These were here well before you, but I think the thing is we have a council who's actually listening.
And I would say that people that accuse others of being big mouths have something to hide. Because there's many of our band members are oppressed. They lack the confidence. They lack the self-esteem. And they're colonized so bad that they're just in survival mode only. And you see them all the time coming in and asking for help. These are pitiful people that can't speak up. But yet, you see us out there, and then here we're called down and said we're being called names and mocked. And I just heard the other day that Mike Jones and your sister, Carrie, what's her name? Your sister? Carol and Renee Gale said I was incompetent, and I would like to ask them.
Hang on, let's not be bringing up no names here. This ain't a thing, Steve, take control here.
This is not
This ain't
personal.
not
I don't
personal
know.
stuff.
I'm not taking it, I'm not saying
I'm just
personal, I'm just, okay, I won't say any names then. But what I would
Okay.
say is that we are being accused of being incompetent. When someone says you're incompetent, when someone says that you're a troublemaker, when someone says that you got a big mouth, they have something to hide. That's all I have to say about that, okay?
You can't go by hearsay. If you wanna go over there and ask them
I
yourselves.
will, that's what I was hoping they were here
All right.
today.
Yeah, she's back there, go ask her.
Yeah, I will.
She's here every day.
Mike's
But
over on this one.
this type of conversation can't be brought into a public forum type thing. If you have personal items that you need to discuss, then it needs to remain just
Okay.
that personal.
The conversation went in that area, and I apologize, but I will talk to them myself.
Okay.
Can we get going with this one so we can get moving?
Okay, so that's it then. We'd like to know today, obviously, you're not gonna be able to vote on policies and procedures, but I would like to know, on behalf of the band members, if you can, vote on forming a finance committee. Or at least have another meeting so we can discuss the format and,
I think there needs to be a little bit more involved in planning of this finance committee. I don't think we're prepared at all to say, we're just gonna develop this finance committee and these people here are gonna be part of this committee. And there's a lot more investigation, a lot more detail needs to be brought forward with it, rather than just, anytime we have a meeting, we have a briefing to discuss the items that are presented before us, so the council has a chance to review them in a timely manner. When you bring this to us here, you're dictating, this is what I'd like to have done, without giving the council opportunity to review and make any recommendations on their own. So at this point, we'll take a look at it, but I don't think we're prepared at this point to just arbitrarily appoint a finance committee.
I understand. And we're not dictating, we would like to see that. We would like to have something in place, not only to, you know, to protect the band members, but also as yourself as well, all of you. Okay, thank you.
You know, I know when I open my mouth, I get accused for speaking for the tribal councils. So, I don't want that to be the impression at all here, but, you know, I think this is a good discussion, a good first step today. And, you know, I think that, you know, process is important here, and laying a proper foundation. And if we don't lay that proper foundation here, what happened last time is probably gonna happen again. We'll have the finance committee in place for a month, and then nothing will happen. There won't be any systemic structural changes to our organization. And really, when we're talking about these types of things, we really need to look at that, you know, those structural issues and make those structural changes so that we can develop organizationally. And so I think that Steve's absolutely right. Let's kind of take this step by step and go through a proper process and lay the proper foundation.
Thank you, Lynn. Thank you, Liz.
You're welcome.
Moving on down to discussion of the Shakopee money.
Can I say one last thing, then I'm going to leave probably. Over the many, many months, I want to say you've got a tip-top executive director in Steve Howard. Anytime there has been any kind of informality in terms of anybody running to me for something, I always bring it to the attention of Steve Howard. Steve has proven to me to be one of the most effective people that Leech Lake has ever had. I just want to say, I know he never gets thanks. I know he always gets chewed out. I know there's people that are trying to eliminate him. While I'm here, he won't be eliminated. I'll fight like hell. And I just want to say thank you, Steve. You've just been a wonderful executive director.
I feel like an applause is in there. It's my boss, yeah.
Do you have any comments to add, Steve?
No. Oh, I see.
Carrie? I just want to ask the council if they can let Bruce go and get that box out of gaming. And let it be public notice. That's all I want to know. I want to know what's in that box.
What's personal items? We've already got it.
Yeah, I don't know why it was never handed over to
We
you.
forgot, and, you know, we forgot it the day we moved out, and we closed the door locked, and it was a Saturday. But he helped me pack it. It's all my personal stuff.
Who's saying you couldn't get it, Bruce?
Gaming director and members of council.
I've never even heard it was a box.
You had a box over there. I heard you had a box over there.
Maybe it's not getting for the gaming director here, but
You
it
can ask
has.
Jim where it's at. I never even heard of it, so.
If it's your personal stuff, I'd say go see Jim Morales right after this
He's the one
meeting.
that keeps saying no.
I can contact Jim.
And he said it's at council order.
Well, there's 4 council members here that is telling you to go get your box.
Okay,
Didn't even know you
I'll
had
do that today.
There you go.
Discussion of Shakopee money.
I have one more thing, council. I have a personal issue that I have to discuss with you in private. It's about Arnold Sam.
That will have to go under HR and legal.
Okay, all right, thank you.
Are we gonna use that Shakopee money for the development of the White Oak if we decide to go forward with that? Or are we gonna earmark it for somewhere else? We just kinda wanna know what we're gonna do.
Well, that's why I kind of brought it up, is I'd like to have some discussion on it, because we've been talking about it for quite a long time. We're more than halfway through the fiscal year. We've got presentations from economic development to try to move forward, and I'd say let's start moving, doing something.
I'd just like to say a few words about the Shakopee Mid-Washington money that's being mentioned. I was hired from the Bureau of Engineers back in the 80s by Leonard Prescott to go down and expand the Shakopee gaming enterprises. From what they had there was just a TP and a bingo operation into what you see now in terms of Mystic Lake. And they wanted to do it, but they didn't want Lyle Berman, and they didn't want a management company involved. And they said, John, can you help do this? And I just left the BIA, and I said, yeah, I think I can. Because I was working with the Indian Finance Act, and I said, well, if we use a BIA guaranteed loan program, I think I can get the banks together, and we can do it without Lyle Berman. And the rest is history. They did get $30 million. And they did build what you see there, that donut with the teepee. And that was just the start of it. Everything else you see there has been cash flow from that project. And why could they do that? Yeah, they're sitting next to Twin Cities, but they have regulatory advantage. We have regulatory advantage here on Leech Lake, but we're not using our regulatory advantage like we could be. Yeah, we used it for gaming. We've got 3 gaming operations, but there are other opportunities out there to use that regulatory advantage that we own as the band. One of those regulatory advantages is the tax system that we share with the state of Minnesota. And to get more taxes, there are things that you need to do. One is you can count the number of band members, and that's one way that we get taxed, the shared taxes from the state. Why do we get those? Because there's 2 Supreme Court cases that allow us to do that. The state can't tax us as individual band members. But they can tax non-Indians that do business on our reservation with our businesses. So the settlement there, and it's like that with a number of states, is that there was an agreement that was arrived. It's called the state tax agreement, where we split the money with the state from the proceeds that come in from the businesses. Well, how do we increase that? How do we make it grow from where it's been at about $4 million? And in 2005, it was increased actually by $1 million by that council. Well, the way we grow it, there's 2 ways that we grow it. One, we get other band members and other non-Indians to build businesses on the reservation. And another way is that we build our own businesses. And when you look at it from that standpoint, what have been our most successful businesses? The Chiwakaigan has been there. Heck, I was here in the 1980s and the Chewy was expanded. And in 2005, we put together the Northern Lights with Shakopee, with our friends from Shakopee's money, actually. So, like Mick Fitz said, we took $1 million from there, built that business. Even the cash in the cash register to start that business was Shakopee money. So any money that poured in from the customers was all clear profit that was coming in. We were offered $3 million by former Chairman Stanley Crooks in 2005 to put together not only the Shakopee, the Northern Lights gas station, but also the White Oak gas station. The White Oak gas station is the last real area of opportunity that we have to take advantage of our regulatory tax climate advantage on Leech Lake with C-stores. And it's better actually than the one at Northern Lights because we aren't competing with the Y station down there. There are no stations on the east side of reservation, C-stores that we own. Everything goes to Senex or Holiday. And in fact, if you look at 2012, we spent about, we bought about 50,000 gallons of gasoline, the band did. That's not including band members in Deer River. So again, regulatory control of business that we can funnel into that station if we built one at White Oak. All these advantages are our advantages to either contract or to take advantage of the tax code with. So that's where we sit right now. And there's a lot of information flow here, but we spent a good hour and a half about a month ago with the council and did a nice informational piece and answered questions and so forth. I'm sorry that I couldn't capture that at all and give it to you all today, but suffice it to say that I was given a little bit more direction to go ahead and to start formulating the plans. Dave Fineday, the C-store manager, is working on the schematics of the building and so forth. We're involved with talking with the current owner of the land that's adjacent to White Oak about what it would cost to buy that. He has actually given us a purchase agreement with a blank in terms of price. My recommendation is that we, take action and do an appraisal on vacant land. Of course, land is only worth what it's worth to a buyer and a seller at any given point in time. And because all that land next to the casino that is usable is gonna be at a premium, we need to, you know, kind of, you know, gather together here with the council, act on some maybe third-party information from an appraiser and sit down and counter this. So that's where it's at right now. Shakopee money, again, I think would be, I know the way the folks think down there. I've worked with them a lot of years. I've advised them on making money up in a lot of different situations. They've taken my advice a lot of times, and other times they haven't taken my advice. But when they have taken the advice, you know, I'm happy to say it's resulted in income-producing things for them. But, you know, I'm back on Leech Lake. This is you know, villager. They needed heavy lifting, I guess they hired a villager. But anyways, we've got some advantages here, and I'm really happy to, you know, work with this council and my council to talk about these things, and just looking for some direction now to go forward on it.
Speaking for the Office of Economic Development, I would concur with what John said. From my perspective, you cannot do development without land. I mean, that's kind of where we're hamstrung at the present. The Shakopee project is, or the White Oak project is an economic opportunity, not only from the tax perspective, but from the opportunity to generate revenue. Looking at it in even a beyond the convenience store fashion, there's retail and service opportunity to host there and for Leech Lake to be an owner of. There's additional property for development that should also be considered. At present, I've put together a short spreadsheet. I didn't realize this was coming up for discussion today, otherwise I'd have brought that, that depicts both pieces of property. The one I would propose, but I'm not at liberty to discuss at length about today, just because negotiations have not begun, and you don't want to open up the can, otherwise you raise the price. That's just basically the way it goes. So, both properties together with site prep, if you looked at two of the properties, total $1 million. And that is the opportunity for request at the moment. So I would definitely encourage council to consider using the Shakopee money for land acquisition and site prep for both those potential economic development projects, both of which have opportunity to return investment.
What location are we looking at for the Cass Lake one? I seen it, you have the one down at Deer River and then the Cass Lake, which area are you looking at for the land?
Well, we need to, the opportunity, the Chiwakaigon building is non-functional as a convenience store. We had an individual come in and do a walkthrough and make an assessment. What could we change? How could we redevelop it where it exists? And basically he just said, you know, that's what he said, nothing. There's nothing that can be done with that building short of knocking out some pillars and changing the actual structure of the building to make it an operating, highly successful operating convenience store. Right now, the majority of our revenues for the Chiwi are coming from internal resources, so we are not capturing a great deal of highway traffic. We're not capturing the amount of just drive-off that we could get. We're not bringing in additional customers that could be purchasing at venues that band members own, small kiosk type locations or whatever it might be. We're not getting people off the highway at all, in a nutshell. So at present, I would suggest moving that further down the road on Highway 2. But it's dependent upon where you can acquire land, whether it's to do that. But right now, its location is not conducive for either long-term financial stability. That building costs a great deal to operate, maintain, and ensure utilities. It's not structurally well put together for a retail venue. And I think the opportunity to expand that particular property is there as well. And also we have the Dairy Queen, which we're currently the landlord for, and that building is out of compliance. This building is out of compliance for their needs, so we run the risk of losing them as a tenant unless we address their needs as well. So here again, my recommendation would be to look at the Shakopee proposal for land acquisition and site prep so that the development can move forward on both White Oak and a future home for Chiwi.
Thank you. Do you guys have any questions on that one, or?
Yes, I heard this one about the chief, Shakopee money, and I've been bringing things forward for a new MIS communications wireless program. And I have plans, architectural plans that are all ready to go. The land will be where the water tower is now, and because that's going to have to come down. The facilities for telecommunications runs right by there. We can pull them in there and then back out again. Our wireless program is coming along very well. We'll be making comment tomorrow on some of the, the census blocks they use to address for wireless. And it's coming out very positive for us. The texts have been out. But where we'll get the money is from high cost. FCC has a couple of programs. One that's been in place for a long time now has been the Universal Service Funding, and one that's coming up is CAF Connect America Fund. And there's a lot of money available. The telcos that serve this area now receive millions and millions of dollars off those programs, and we could capture a lot of that, if not most of it, by having our own telecommunications center, data center right here in Cass Lake. So that's where I'd like to see the money go for, is the building that's all the engineering's all done. I'd like to bring that forward and put it out for bid. It's all ready to go to bid.
Kim, what's the cost?
It'd be about 500,000. It's just like the studio.
We talked briefly. I wasn't privy to exactly what the cost of the building were, but the telecommunications piece here again, for economic development, you think about where the hubs of revenue are being generated from right now, and they're mostly centralized. Cass Lake, you've got Deer River, you've got Walker. They're centralized within communities, but yet with telecommunications, we do have an incredible opportunity to expand business opportunities for band members and community members living in farther reaching areas. Just an example that just kind of blew me away one time. If anybody drives downtown Ely, you see this really tall building with hardly any windows at all. Guess what happens out of that tall building in Ely, Minnesota? The U.S. processes all its Social Security checks. And that's telecommunications. So I definitely concur that Leech Lake can take great advantage of opportunity in its rural communities by expanding telecommunications. I think we need to prioritize what's ready. I mean, there's a huge amount of opportunities on the table. If the request is a total of $1 million, how can we squeeze it all out of one request would be the negotiations that we could, or the discussion that we should have next.
Any more questions? I'm ready to go at bringing forward the engineering plans if you want to see them. Those are all set to go.
Should have spent this back in '05, John. Things were cheaper, could have got them all then.
Okay, thank you.
I don't think.
Thank you for the input on that one, Frank.
Pardon?
Thank you for the input on that one. I know that's one of the projects that you've been working on and getting the staff, and they're doing really well over there.
Yes.
Just one final note. I mean, I just kind of, and I shared it with, just informally with others, just how I came up with $1 million, what the costs were. And in talking with Levi, there's a big range of possible land purchase prices. So I went on the high end. So it's not impossible that we couldn't consider all 3 projects out of one proposal. or at least a good substantial chunk of all of it, and then find resources to fill in the blanks.
I don't think we have to eliminate ourselves to $1 million. I think if we put it there, I'm sure we could easily start a discussion with Charlie Vig about bringing these forward and looking at new opportunities as well. I know it's always been a custom that's always been $1 million, but not saying that, trying to at least put it forward and say these are 3 projects here, we're looking at you funding it, would it be possible to go above that $1 million threshold there?
Well, we do have the plans and the business plans in place for the projects. Mike has got his business plan in place and the numbers pretty well in order so that we could move that proposal forward. And I agree too. I mean, if it's a good opportunity and requesting more, you can always get turned down and get what you expected.
The reason why we let, Stanley said $1 million per year is because their business council can only grant up to $1 million per year without going to the General Assembly. But that was, I don't know if they changed it, but that's the way it was back then.
Well, I was just thinking, it wouldn't hurt to talk to Charlie Vig as the new chair.
Yeah, if we could get a multi-year, they also opened the door to say, we'll make you loans too, so that's another possibility.
Yeah,